information to share with you in going through this process. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I did want to mention before you fill out a FAFSA form, every contributor on the form is going to need a studentaid.gov account. Going to studentaid.gov, where the FAFSA is located, you need to go there and set up an account. When I say every contributor, that means everyone that's going to need to be on the form. Tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to do an example of a dependent student filling out the form that has parent contributors. Each student, every student would need to have an studentaid.gov account, but each parent may as well. In a one-parent household, then it would just be the one parent that we need to. If there's going to be two parents on there, you may both need a studentaid.gov account if you did not file joint taxes in 2023. And these are going to be some things that I will mention again throughout the form. But it is now more important than ever that you have a studentaid.gov account before you're able to start the form. You have to have it. If you got a Social Security number, it needs to be 1 or 3 days to verify with the Social Security Administration. And to be able to fill out a FAFSA form, you must have a studentaid.gov account that is verified already. So this is something we would want you as families to do now if you have not already done that. Every parent, student who doesn't have it, go to studentaid.gov. If you're a parent that already has a studentaid.gov account from yourself in the last 10 years and you had went to college, or a previous son or daughter that went to college and you had to get one, you don't need a new account, but each student is going to need to have their own. So if you've got a new student this year filling it out for the first time, they would need that studentaid.gov account on there. So just wanted to make sure to mention that before we get started with the step-by-step program, because if you ever go to a FAFSA event or an appointment, say with us, and you haven't done this yet, that's the only thing we would be able to do at that time, at that appointment or at that FAFSA event. Now, again, what we're going to use the example for is a dependent student that is going to start the form and then invite the parent to complete their section as well. Typically, I know at ICAN, this is how we begin it, with the student information first, and then we get into the parent information as well. Last year for 24-25, this was a new way, major changes that are going to be the same here on the 25-26 FAFSA form that breaks it up, where each contributor is going to fill out their own separate part. So when we log into studentaid.gov, this is what you're going to see. And what we want you to click on at first is the Start the New FAFSA form on there. What it's going to ask then is for the student to log in with that studentaid.gov account. So they need to put in whether it's their email, phone, or username that they're going to create and the password, and then hit log in. What it's going to do, it's going to come to a dashboard on there. And eventually with the FAFSA form, you want to complete the FAFSA form, then it's going to come to this very first section here that's just asking whether the student is a student or a parent. Because really, a parent can start the form too and invite the student. That's not going to be our example tonight, but that is something that is possible. Usually we've found it that it seems to be best if we go ahead and do the student first and then invite the parent. But just to let you know, that is something that can be reversed if it, for whatever reason, would need to be. For our example here, for Brenda, she's going to be the student, and we hit continue. Then we get into some onboarding videos. Now, I'm going to be talking about this, so I'm hoping that when the time comes, if you're filling it out yourself, you won't have to worry about that, because we'll be able to answer most of your questions with this step-by-step presentation. But it'll get into what is the FAFSA form. It's also going to get into who are the contributors on the FAFSA form, the student, and then parents, or if the student was married, spouse as well. But just so you know who is considered to be a parent that would need to fill out a FAFSA form, here is what the rules are on that. If legal parents are married, we're going to answer questions about both parents. And if they filed joint taxes in 2023, then actually only one parent would need a studentaid.gov account. If for some reason those parents that are married did not file joint taxes in 2023, they filed married but separate, then each parent would need to have a studentaid.gov account. And there would actually be 3 different sections for that student's FAFSA in that scenario, that how they would need to fill out the form. Tonight, our example is going to be parents are married and they filed joint taxes in 2023, but that is something I'm going to mention again when we get to a certain section of this presentation, just as a reminder. Now, if both the legal parents are unmarried but they live together, we're still going to answer questions about both parents. But if they're unmarried, chances are they didn't file married joint taxes in 2023. So this would be one example to where both parents would each need to get a studentaid.gov account. If a parent is widowed or single, we're only going to answer questions about that parent unless the widowed parent would be remarried as of the day we're filling out the form. Not whether or not they were remarried in 2023, but if they're remarried as of today, then on the 25-26 FAFSA when it comes up, or if they get remarried on, November 30th, and now they're filling out the FAFSA when it begins on December 1, we would need that parent and step-parent information from 2023. That would be another example. Since they weren't remarried in 2023, they wouldn't have filed joint taxes then. So each, that parent and step-parent, would need to get a studentaid.gov account to be able to complete this section, complete each section that is needed for the student's FAFSA. Now, if parents are divorced or separated, we answer questions about the parent that has provided the most financial support in the last 12 months. Last 12 months from whenever you're filling out the form, whether that's December 1, February 1, January 1, whenever that is, we look at the last 12 months. If that would be mom and mom's not remarried, then only mom's information is on the form. But if mom would be remarried as of the day we're filling out the form, then we need to answer questions about that parent and step-parent. And if they weren't remarried and didn't file joint taxes in 2023, then again, another example to where both of those parent contributors on the form, parent and step-parent, would each need to get a studentaid.gov account to be able to fill out the form. Again, if you have any questions as we're going along, please put those in the chat box. This is always one we need to address before going through the form step by step. And I will tell you right now, at studentaid.gov, there is kind of a who is a contributor calculator that is out there that's actually really good to be able to refer to this. Allows student parents to answer questions, and will let you know which parent needs to end up filling out the form. But if you have any questions tonight, if you're watching this live, please let us know in the chat box. If you're watching the recording and have questions, contact us at ICAN. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have. Another onboarding is kind of what to expect from here, and then after submitting the form, what takes place. I'll briefly mention that tonight. Most of the focus is going to be just making sure that you know how to get this form processed on there, but give you an idea a little bit at the end about what's going to take place after submitting the form. Once you've went through that, and again, you wouldn't necessarily need to hit the videos and keep hitting continue. The first thing that we're going to do is needing to review the student identity information: name, date of birth, last 4 digits of social, email address, mobile phone number, and permanent address. If any of that needs to change, you can't do it within here, but there is a part that is on the FAFSA form back on the dashboard where you can go into your settings and readjust those. Any of that, the email, mobile phone, permanent address, anything that you would need to. So it can't actually be in here. You'd have to jump out of the FAFSA form, go to your dashboard, back to the dashboard in the settings, be able to do that. And then you could get back into the FAFSA form again, and all of this should be changed. But this is something just to double check and make sure, or eventually down the road, if for some reason anything does need to be changed, you are able to do it. If it looks all correct right now, then we're going to hit continue. And next question is going to be when the student became a legal resident of, here we've got the example of Georgia, but most of you, it's going to be Iowa that you're looking at on there, when you became a legal resident. Now, if a student was born here in the state of Iowa and lived here on their life, then we would put the month and year that they were born. But if that's not the case, then really try to come as close as possible to when you became a resident, came here in Iowa. This, I got to tell you, doesn't have to be totally exact like date of birth and social security numbers and everything, but we do want to try to come as close as possible what that month and year is. A lot of people will know what the year is, but well, I can't quite remember the month. Again, just trying to come as close as possible to that in answering that question. Once we've done that and hit continue, now we get into providing consent and approval to have taxes transferred directly into the FAFSA from the IRS. This is something both the student and any other contributor, whether spouse or in most of the cases for you watching here as parent contributors, that you're going to need to do when you're in your sections of this form. It's a long list of things to look at, but at the very end, you would hit approval on here. For a student to be eligible for financial aid, state and federal financial aid, everybody must give consent and approval in their section, any contributors that are going to be on a student's FAFSA form. So I want to encourage all of you, students and parents, to definitely hit that approval, because if you do not, it's something you can go back into and do later again, but we want to warn you right now, the student is not going to be eligible for federal or state aid unless you do hit that approval button. So even if the student didn't file taxes in 2023, or parents later on when they're in their section, you still need to hit approval on that. Now, what's coming up, and they've just put this out, and it's newer for 24-25, and it's going to be on the 25-26 form as well that we're talking about, is they're trying to let you know whether that information was transferred over or not. For our example tonight, it's going to say that the data was not received, but I got to tell you, this works for the majority of family. I would say 95% of the people that when they hit the approval, their tax information is going to be brought over directly. And there will be questions that I'll show you tonight that you won't see because it'll already be imported directly from the IRS. But just occasionally, there are some, even students and parents, who it doesn't work for. And so anytime, whether you're filling it out yourself, have your 23 taxes ready. If you set up an appointment with us or go to a FAFSA event, please also bring in your 2023 tax information for students and parents. Sometimes even when the data retrieval, this bringing over here works, there can be some reasons why we need to take a look at the taxes too. So I think majority of you, this is going to work for you and not what you see on here, but still any appointment, any FAFSA event, bring your taxes with you. Now, after we hit continue here, now we're getting into the student's personal circumstances. And we're going to ask about their marital status, and they would check what box that would be. I know for the majority of families watching this, your students are going to hit single, never married, and then we hit continue. It's going to ask about what year they'll be in college. Probably most of you are high school senior families watching this, getting ready to fill it the first time. So it'd be a first year freshman. But if there is anything different, you're filling it out for another student already in college, you would check the appropriate box, as well as asking at the beginning of the 25-26 school year, where will they already have their first bachelor's degree? The majority of you are going to be no, but that may not always be the case. So take a look, but majority of you, that's probably no, and you click on that, and now we can hit continue from here. Now we get into what we used to call the dependency status questions. They're still calling it student personal circumstance, or they're calling it student personal circumstance questions now. But what these questions are is trying to determine if a student is dependent or independent from needing parent information on the form. And basically, for a student to be independent, they would have to be able to check one of these boxes, except the very last one where it says none of these apply. It's asking if the student's currently serving on active duty in the armed forces for purposes other than training, or if the student is a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, if the student has children or other people, excluding a spouse, who live with them and receive more than half their support from them, and will in the next school year. At any time since the student turned 13, were they an orphan? Or at any time since the student turned 13, they were a ward of the court, or they were in foster care at any time after 13. Those are some key questions, and most high school seniors are not going to be any of these things, but these are three things there that we just mentioned where it could be possible, as well as this very last one. Is the student in or was in a legal guardianship with someone other than a parent or step parent as determined by a court in their state of legal residence? If any student would click on one of these boxes, besides the none of these that apply, they would be independent and not need parent information. Chances are the colleges will ask for documentation behind whatever reason it is, box that they clicked on, whether for example, ward or dependent of the court after 13, or in a legal guardianship with someone determined by a court as well, just for documentation on that. So we would tell, students and the people that are helping them, to have that documentation ready, but they would be independent and not need parent information on the form. Now, if they click none apply here and hit continue, one other really what I would call dependency status question is the homeless question. At any time on or after July 1 of 2024, was the student unaccompanied, which is the key here, unaccompanied and either homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless? Now, if no, then we hit no and hit continue. But if that's yes, then it's going to ask them who designated them in that situation, like a homeless school liaison, as one example. But if that is yes, we tell them to get the documentation ready to when the college is asked for it, but that student would be an independent student and not need parent information on the form either. For our example, though, today, these are going to be all no. And so the student's still going to be, we hit continue, and they're still going to be considered dependent and need parent information on the form. Now, another question does come up to ask, even though you answered no to all these, do you have any unusual circumstances? And then it gives examples of that. And these are really extreme cases, unusual circumstances that a college might be able to look at. They would need to check with them, but we're talking about an abusive environment, abandoned or estranged, refugee status, and parents are displaced in a foreign country, victim of human trafficking. All these examples are on here. If a student feels like they do and they would put yes, they could actually move on without completing any parent information, and they would need to contact their colleges directly. Colleges are the ones that are empowered to make professional judgments, and they would need to be the one to take a look at any of these unusual circumstances, be talked with about. For our example, though, today, again, we're going to say no and then hit continue. And it does say, now it says you're a dependent student. Then the question comes up, which has caused a lot of problems last year, and we hope it doesn't cause as many problems this year. And I know our financial aid folks monitoring the chat would agree with this. And that's the direct unsubsidized loan only question. The question asks, are the students' parents refusing to provide information on the FAFSA form? And we're hoping that's all no, and that's what it's going to be set on initially. If somebody says yes on there, then really, if their parents are refusing to do it, it's not going to help the student getting financial aid, but what they might be able to get, and they would need to talk to the college about this at first, it isn't automatic. They might be able to get a direct unsubsidized loan. For those of you that are watching tonight, and especially I know it's would be a lot of parents, you're going to want to put no on this question on here. That's not all you're applying to, and the parents aren't refusing to provide the information. So it is automatically already on no to begin with anyway, and so we're hoping that that will eliminate some issues that has been last year was put at yes without reading the whole question on what it meant. Once we've got the no there and hit continue, now we're going to ask, since the student is dependent, about the parents. It's going to ask them if they're married to each other. In our case tonight, that is yes. If it wasn't, there would be a few more questions that would be asked to try to determine which parent needs to fill out the form for them. But for our example tonight, parents are married, so we're going to hit yes. And now it gets into the section where they need to invite the parents to the FAFSA form. So since the parents are married, it gives you two options, the parent and the parent spouse or partner. I will tell you what I normally do in filling this out with these two. What this is going to be is inviting the parents in to fill out the form later, their section later. You'll get an email on it, but this will allow when a parent contributor logs into the FAFSA form, there should be an activity that they've been given an invite by the student, and we're going to take a look at that when we take a look at the parent section of this form. What it does ask here is first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number of the parent, as well as email address. This is obviously something then that the student is going to need the parent's help in filling out and knowing this information to be able to invite. Now here on this parent here, we want to put that in that parent that has the federal student aid ID. If these parents filed joint taxes in 2023, and if I was filling out this, I usually ask, did you file joint taxes? If that was the case, then I would ask which parent has the studentaid.gov account and just put that parent here and parent in the first parent part. I have usually left because of glitches last year. We're hoping it's not as bad, this year, but just because of some glitches from the past, I usually then let the parent, spouse, or partner blank. The only time I utilize that was if these two parent contributors did not file joint taxes in 2023, then you had to put in both in there so both would get the invite to complete their sections. But if they filed joint taxes, I would just put in the parent here, and if it was just one that had the studentaid.gov account, they would get the invite, and then in their section later on, they would be able to put in the general information for the other parent, spouse, or partner. The other thing I want to mention about this too is this has to exactly match the first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number has to exactly match, just as the way the parent signed up for a studentaid.gov account. So if a parent's name is Elizabeth, and that's how they signed up the FAFSA.gov account, but they usually go by Liz, for example, on here, you would not want to invite Liz down and just put that name. If it was Elizabeth in their studentaid.gov account, put Elizabeth down for the first name. Whatever is on that studentaid.gov account, that's what it needs to be. And if you're not 100% sure, I would jump into a different browser and log in with that parent studentaid.gov account, look in the settings to see what exactly you would put for the first name. And even sometimes it's last name that can be a little bit different on their studentaid.gov account and what was put on here. That has to exactly match for you to be able to hit send invite and move on. Once you do put in the information and send invite, the parent should get an email right away. I'll show you that email in a little bit. You don't have to get into the email to actually log in and do your part later on, but we will show you an example about that in a little bit. After the student invites the parents, then we get into the student demographic part. It asks about their gender. Now, these questions are something you don't have to answer either, but it gets into the student's gender, if they're Hispanic or Latino or Spanish origin, their race then as well, and it will go into subcategories. Because of a few glitches in the beginning last year, we didn't always do the subcategories, just the initial ones that we hit on, but hopefully that is getting better as well. And again, if you prefer not to answer, that's something that you can do too. Once we've entered this in one way or the other, then we hit continue. And now it gets into student citizenship. If you're a U.S. citizen or national, click on that, hit continue. If there are eligible non-citizens, what we mean by eligible non-citizens are generally those that are here as permanent residents. They'll have a conditional green card or a green card with a 9-digit alien registration number on there that will need to be included and asked about if you click on the eligible non-citizen. One thing that I do want to mention, there are instructions on who would be considered eligible non-citizens and who wouldn't be. Those people that are here in the United States on visas, like student visa, visitor visa, work visas, they would not be considered eligible non-citizens for this form. And if they're neither a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, unless a college was asking for it specifically, and we don't know of any in the state of Iowa that would be if they're not U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens, we would tell them then don't fill out the FAFSA form. Because if you're not a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, you are not eligible for aid from the state of Iowa or federal aid either. There are some other states that might be a little bit different and may ask students that, but at least from Iowa, we don't know of any colleges that would ask for it. And since they wouldn't be eligible for federal or state of Iowa aid, no real reason to fill out the form if you click on that. Our example here, though, they are a U.S. citizen or national, and then we hit continue. And it asks about parents' educational status, whether neither attended, one or both did but didn't complete, or one or both completed. If you don't know if students filling it out try to complete their part and they don't have the parents there now to be able to ask, you can put don't know on there. But once that is answered and you hit continue, it asks if a parent was killed in the line of duty. And whether a member of the armed forces or on or after events of 9/11 or performing official duties as a public safety officer. So our example here is no in that case, but if it is unfortunately yes for any of you as families, you would click on that. Whichever the answer it is, though, once you've clicked on it, you would click continue. And now we're asked about the student's high school completion status. Many are going to have the high school diploma, and then we'll look up the high school later. But there is that for GED or homeschool that is listed on there as well. If it is high school diploma that you have and you or will have for high school seniors or will have a high school diploma, because it's asking about the start of the 25-26 college year, then it's going to have you search for your actual high school. So by state, city, high school name, once you find it and click on it, hit continue. It'll want you to confirm it one more time by looking at it. And if it is correct, then hit continue from there. Now we're getting into students' finances. It'll ask the student, since it didn't find it on there, did you or will you file 23 taxes? This will also be a question that's asked if it didn't find anything or if you didn't file taxes. This will be asked. And if you didn't file, you would just put no down and you're not going to see these next questions coming up. For our example here, we're just kind of showing you as an example on if you weren't able to pull your taxes over, but you did file, what the questions would be. So this student, they said yes, they did. They hit continue. And since it didn't pull their information in directly from the IRS, it'll get into their 23 taxes about their filing status, money earned from working, tax exempt interest, untaxed portions of IRA distribution. Those two probably most students aren't going to have on their taxes, but it does ask them about that. Untaxed portion of pensions, adjusted gross income, income tax paid. And so you need to look at those 23 taxes to manually put this information in. IRA deductions, education credits. These two questions down below here, even if the taxes would file, these two would be asked. If a student or a parent later on, if your taxes are brought over, you won't see a lot of the questions we just went through, but these bottom ones, amount of college grant scholarships or AmeriCorps benefits reported as income on the IRS, or then foreign earned income exclusion. Quite honestly, I have not seen anyone yet in filling out this form that's had any of this yet that we've needed to list down, but you want to double check just to make sure. But if there's zeros, we would put zeros in. But these two questions will be asked even if the IRS Direct Data Exchange will work for you. Once you've entered in all these questions and hit continue, now we get into the student asset questions. Total balance of cash savings and checking, current net worth of investments, current net worth of business and farm. And we go ahead and include those in. Now, depending on what the parent income level is and the way they answer some questions, assets may not be looked at all. But when we start with the student part of the FAFSA, we don't know yet what the parent information is. So students in this case are always going to be asked their asset questions if they're the ones that begin with the form. So all of these begin with the words as of today. That's what they want to know. So you would include it as of that day for, again, cash savings, checking, investments, business, and farm. A lot of the bottom two, many students aren't going to have, so you just put zero down, finding out their cash savings and checking, putting that in as we see here with this example. After we do that and hit continue, now we put down the colleges that the student wants the information sent to. Up to 20 colleges is what can be listed down on the form. If there's only one, that's all you would need to put. So if you'd happen to be given a school code by the college, you can put that in instead of listing out the searching by school name, the state and city and school name that can be included in there. Whichever way that you need to do it, we want you to include all your colleges up to 20 that you want listed. Each time that you do that, search and hit continue. Once you've got them, making sure that you do select them all that you want to include down on there with your list. You hit continue, and then it will show you which ones you have selected before you're done. If you happen to say, oh, wait a minute, I did want to add one more, there's search and select more schools on this page before you move on. But for this example, if this student, that was their only two that they wanted to list and they were done, we hit continue. And now we're about done. We're at the review part. Each student section, the personal identifiers, the personal circumstances, demographics, financials, and colleges, you can click on the download box there or the drop-down box to look at that information and double check it to make sure that it is accurate. And I would encourage every student to do that in their section and later on the parents when you do it as well. But you can double check that. Anything that needs to be corrected, you can go back in there and to do that. But if everything looks good, and you also take a look and know that the contributor has been sent their information and that's good. You'll also see here like the parents and nothing will be included yet, well, they haven't done their section yet, and that's okay. Um, but as long as the student, if everything looks good, we would want you to hit continue. And now it's the summary page. It's basically going over that the applicant, they're signing that they'll use their federal and state aid only for cost of the college. They're not in default, don't owe any money. Will notify school if they are in default, not use Pell Grant for more than one college if they happen to get it, and that they are who they say they are on there. What we've got down below, then you'll check this box, I, student's name, agree to the terms outlined above, and then you'll hit sign. Now notice on here that it just does say sign. It doesn't say sign and submit. That's because when you hit sign on here, it's only the student that would have completed their part so far. And so it will say the student section is completed. And now we need the parent contributors. They've still got to do their part on the FAFSA. Once the last contributor is at the end of their section, then it's going to say sign and submit. And I'll be able to show you that here in just a bit when we're in the parent section. Students also going to get information about, action needed, what they do next, checking email, action needed. And that's the contributors you select to receive an inval fight and basically still need to do their part of the form. So once we've got the student section and it says complete, now we need the parents to complete their part of the form too. Now you will get an email as parents on the parents invite. This is what your email is going to look like. And you can certainly click on the get started part of that email to do your section. But basically what that does is just take you to studentaid.gov website so that you can log in and get started with your part. A lot of time when I'm helping families in the office, instead of looking at the email, we'll just log out of the student's studentaid.gov account and then go ahead and log into the parent studentaid.gov account. And going back to studentaid.gov account, parents put in their login information here and click login. What we want to see at their dashboard when they go to their dashboard is this my activity from the student. Hey, your student's name wants your help on the FAFSA form. And so you accept the invitation to be able to do your contributor part on there as a parent. When you accept the invitation, and it'll give a little disclaimer here that means you're going to provide consent and approval to have your taxes brought over on the 25-26 FAFSA. Just hit continue, and it goes through the same onboarding process if you wanted to see it. What is the form? Contributors to the FAFSA, what to expect, as well as after submitting the FAFSA form too. Just like what we've did with the student information, a lot of this is going to look very similar. First part of it's parent identity information. Just double checking to make sure the name, social security number, email, mobile phone, as well as address is what it's supposed to be. If you need to make any changes, you would have to jump out of the form back to your dashboard, go into the settings to make the changes to this with your information. But if it looks correct, you will just hit the continue box to move on. Right away will come you as parents needing to hit consent and approval. The same long message that's on here, but at the very end. And again, whether or not you even filed taxes, this approve button must be selected by all contributors on a student's FAFSA form. Once we hit approve there, it'll let you know whether or not it works. For the majority of you, that will. But again, for these purposes tonight, just to show you what questions are going to be asked, it's saying the data is not received. We would still hit continue, and that would mean we would need to manually put in the information. Next, we get into parent demographics, your marital status that is on here, whether single, unmarried, married, remarried, separated, divorced, widowed, whatever that option is. For our example tonight, again, we're going to put married down and hit continue. Parent state of legal residence. Now, what we would use here, there's two parents and they file joint taxes. So we only needed one studentaid.gov account created by that parent. So they're the one that's logged in. So they're the one that's going to answer this question. When did they become a legal resident in the state of Iowa? And if that was date of birth for them, they would put the month and year that they were born. If not, they moved at a different time. Again, trying to come as close as possible to put that month and year down. Next, parents' finances. Questions you did not see on the student part that is right here. These are questions that don't affect federal student aid eligibility, but really what they're trying to determine if you received any of these federal benefits in 23 or 24, or if not only the parent, but anyone as a family in your household received this. It's really a simplified needs test, and if you check a box, your asset questions won't be asked. If it's none apply, you will click on none apply, but it's the earned income credit, which is on your taxes. I think it's line, if I remember right, I think it was line 27 or 28 that is on there where you would see them on your 23 taxes. Federal housing assistance, if anybody received free or reduced price lunch from school, not just because everybody at the school received it, but if you qualified for that. Medicaid, SNAP, food stamps, SSI, supplemental security income, TAMP, WIC. I mean, anything check that applies on there. But if just one of these boxes are checked besides the none of these apply, then later on assets would not be asked. For our example here, we're going to put none that applies and hit continue. Then it's going to ask, did the parents file taxes in 23? Yes. Did they file a joint tax return? Yes, on there, and we go ahead and would hit continue. This question might not be asked, but the joint one usually is, even if taxes are brought over, then they know for sure that they're not going to need another section of this form completed by the other parent. They'll just ask for that parent's general information here towards the end. So yes and yes on this, we hit continue. It's going to ask about family size. Besides the one parent, the parent and spouse, and the student, how many other children are in there? And that's what this question is, how many other children are dependents? For this example, they put in one, so the family size is 4. We hit continue, and then asking how many people in that family, not including parents, will be college students. For this example, it's just for this student, Jenny Price, so it's just one. If you have more than one in college going at the same time, you would list 2, 3, however many that might be. I will tell you, starting last year and this year, then 25, 26 as well, that no longer is a factor into what kind of financial aid a student can receive. It's not factored into the calculation that is done to determine what they feel you as a family could contribute. But it's still a question that's being asked right now, and maybe down the road in other years that could change. But at least right now, it's not a factor in determining what kind of financial aid a student can get. After answering this and hitting continue, then it's those same tax questions now for you as parents. And I know this is a little bit hard to read, but filing status, money earned from working, tax exempt interest, untaxed portion of IRA distributions, and all these, if they're 0, you would put 0 down on there. Adjusted gross income, income tax paid, IRA deductions, education credits on there. And did you file a schedule A, B, C, D, E, or F? You can see why we need to take a look. If we have to manually put them in, obviously, why we would need your tax information to be able to file all of this down to this last question, not profit or loss from a Schedule C if you're have a business at all. Now, these last 2 questions were the same ones that I'd mentioned in the student section. If you are able to bring in your tax information over electronically, and that does work, like the majority of you are going to do, you're not going to see anything on this first side on the left side all the way down to this net profit or loss Schedule C question. You're only going to get these questions here: the amount of college grants, scholarships, AmeriCorps benefits reported as income, foreign earned income exclusion, which again, for the majority of you, are going to be zeros that you would just list down. So wanted to at least show you that their example on what could be asked. But again, the majority of you are not going to see all these questions, and it's going to even be easier to be able to fill out. Now that we've answered all these questions and hit continue, as parents, you're going to be asked about your asset questions. One that is on here before the assets is the annual child support received. If that's 0, you'd put 0 down. But if any of you receive child support, what you have to do is enter the amount of child support that you as a parent received for the last complete calendar year. So if you were doing this in December, you would put down what you received the last complete calendar year. That would be 2023. if any of you file this after January 1st of 2025, at any time after January 1st, 2025, then what you would put down, the last complete calendar year, would be 2024. So it depends on when you fill it out, what complete calendar year that's going to be that you end up putting on the form. As far as assets, the checking and savings, the investment, business, and farm. This is where it usually applies more to the parents. So I had a couple of slides I wanted to quickly mention about that. When we're talking business and farm, what they're looking for is net worth, value minus debt. That would include land, building, machineries, equipment, inventory. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Put it in the chat box if you're watching it live or the recording. Let us know later. But there are no longer any exemptions for businesses or farms now. That started last year and continues this year. Down the road, things could change, but for 25-26 FAFSA, no longer any exemptions. So any of you that are small business owners or family farmers, you would need to put down the net worth, value minus debt, for this, including all of this land, building, machineries, equipment. Now, if your value minus debt, which would only be net worth, value minus debt, that would be to these assets here. If it is zero, I mean, if farm is worth $1 million, but you still owe $1 million on it, that would be zero that you'd put down. If it's into a negative for the asset question, you would still put a zero down on here. But again, if you have any questions on that, please let us know. As far as the investments, these are investments you have to count. Not the home that you live in, but real estate, trust funds, even if you can't touch them until later, mutual funds, CDs, stocks, bonds, 529 plans. Now, 529 plans, since both student and parents are asked about assets, usually like to mention 529 plans. Where are they counted? They are counted, but are they counted on the student side or the parent side? Well, the way 529 plans are set up, you as the parent are the account owner, the student's the beneficiary. So you would count it on the parent side. But now you only do count the 529 plan of the students you're filing the FAFSA form out for. That wasn't always the way in the past, but this year and this 25-26 year, they're only having you put down the 529 plan of the student you're filling the form out for. But it would go on the parent side. Now, if a grandparent or an aunt or uncle has been saving for a student, grandparent and aunt or uncle are the account owners. The student is just the beneficiary. There's nowhere here on the form we have to count grandparent or aunt or uncle's assets. So those would not be listed here anywhere on the student's FAFSA form. Investments not included. The two major ones are the home that you live in and retirement accounts. The home that you live in retirement is not going to be looked at as assets on the form. In fact, even your contribution into a retirement account is no longer counted like it used to be as untaxed income. So now we can finally say there's nowhere here on the form where any of your retirement money is going to be taken a look at as assets. Now we get to the part, after filling all that out, now we get to the part of the other parent spouse information, their first name, last name, date of birth, social security number. If you had already done that on the parent invite, and that could already be in there, but if you didn't, then this is where you would fill that out. I do want to mention real quickly, this example is where the parents did file joint taxes. If you had two parent contributors and they did not file joint taxes, then we wouldn't see this on here, and you would hit continue and sign for the parent, for this parent, and then that third one, the other parent spouse, would need to complete their section as well. So in other words, our example today, we've really got two different sections that we're completing for one complete FAFSA. But for some students, if the two parent contributors did not file joint taxes in 2023, then there would be three that would need to be filled out. And again, each of them would need their own studentaid.gov account to complete their part. Again, our example, that's not the case here. When we hit continue, after doing the other parent or spouse general information, now we're at the review page, just double checking the identifiers, demographics, financials, and if everything looks good, now we're on the sign and submit part. Since there are no others, since the student already did theirs, and this is the only parent part that we need to have done, now it can be signed and submitted. So after the parent checks the box that they agree to the terms, they click sign and submit. it is going to say, congratulations, the FAFSA form is complete for the student information. And the student actually then would be the one that is emailed with the confirmation page stating this, that the FAFSA is complete. Nothing that they have to do with that information, just hang on to it and keep it for their records. But then but it is now complete. One thing I did want to mention, different colleges are going to have different priority dates for getting this information in. And so we really want to encourage you as families to try to get it done in December or January. Then we think you're going to meet almost all priority dates for any colleges that they have. But for a student to have if any college has, say, a priority date of February 1 when they want you to get this in by, the student that means getting it in where it is totally complete, every contributor completing their part. The FAFSA is not complete until that happens. So if a student, if a college had a February 1 priority date and the student did their FAFSA part on January 30th, but a parent waited to do their part until February 14th, February 14th is when the FAFSA would be complete, and they would have missed out on that February 1 priority date. And the best way to ensure that a student gets the most financial aid coming to them is to beat any priority date or dates of colleges that they are looking at. So make sure, if you can, if at all possible, I would try to, if you're doing it yourself, sit down together as a family and make sure that you're able to complete all the sections. If you set up an appointment with us at ICAN, we want to try to get both sections completed. So we need every contributor available. Every time you log in with your account, and I didn't show this, but every time you log in, there's going to be a 6-digit code that's either going to be text to your email, 2-step verification. So we need to be able to complete a form to have both the student and parent at least available to be able to give us that code to complete their sections of the FAFSA form. Now, I don't have it listed on here, but what's going to come next, just real quickly, is after you complete the form, we hope within a week or two, every college that you listed down is going to get the results. There is a possibility right away in December, there could be a delay before colleges get results. We're not 100% sure yet, but ideally and usually, it takes 1 or 2 weeks for it to be processed and sent to the colleges, where you will also get an email saying it's been processed, and there will be something called a FAFSA submission summary. Really, everything that's been included on the FAFSA form will be on there, but the colleges will get the results as well. Eventually, then the colleges will use this to come up with a financial aid offer listing what you qualify for. Now, no matter when you do the form, a lot of colleges might not be able to get out financial aid offers this year until February at the earliest. I could see it going into March and April too, since we still have a 2-month delay when we normally start this FAFSA year. Usually it's October 1. This year it's delayed again, so it's not starting until December the 1st. But you will hear from the colleges. They can guide you on this. They can't do anything though unless you actually do the FAFSA form, and that's what we wanted to mostly concentrate on tonight, just to give you an idea on what it will look like in completing the form. So if you have everything ready, your studentaid.gov accounts ready, your 23 taxes if you filed ready, any checking and savings investment information ready, I think it'll go very quickly with you. And that's what we're going to need from you if you get help from us at any ICAN appointment or FAFSA event that might be taking place here throughout the state. I'm going to put out a last call for any questions that were out. So any last minute questions, please let us know on that. For those of you that are watching the recording, please let us know at ICAN if you have any questions that are out there as well. I want to thank our step-by-step partners for the Bureau of Iowa College Aid, IASFA, and at ICAN here. We are more than happy to help you out with anything. I do want to, again, also thank my step-by-step volunteers that were on tonight. Jordan, Mary, and Rachel, thank you so much for doing that. I think you're still putting in a few questions here. So I'm going to continue on with that. But if you want any help from us at ICAN, whether it is a question or you want to set up an appointment with us, you can do that by giving us a call going to our website at icansucceed.org. We use this Calendly system that is on there. So going to our website, you can make an appointment with us, see what we have available, what works for you as a parent and a student parent, making sure you're both available, and then sign up an appointment with us, whether in person at one of our locations, if you'd rather do it in person, or we can do Zoom appointments as well. One thing that the pandemic did show us when it hit there in 2020 is how well Zoom can be utilized in even helping with these FAFSA appointments. So I know for some of you, where you've mentioned where you're from, you might not be real close to an ICAN location, and so we're more than happy to help you through Zoom if that's easier for you, whether it's driving distance or harder to get out of work, and but you work from home and can set up an appointment with us. We're happy to do it that way as well. All right. I am not seeing any other questions that are in the chat box now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you very much again for attending, whether it was live here on Wednesday, November the 6th, or you're watching a recording of this. We hope you found it helpful. Good luck with this upcoming process. And please let us know if there are any questions that you have. We're more than happy to help you at ICAN. And I know the colleges and universities, wherever you're looking at, are more than happy to answer any questions that you might have as well. So thanks again and good luck, and have a good financial aid process and season coming up. Ask questions if you need to. Thank you.